This is the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge, round 4, week 6, and this week, we're laying it out. Greetings, people of the internet. I'm Scott with Serkworks Art Labs. Welcome, mad creators, to the underground laboratory where we create robots, aliens, zombies, and other imminent threats to humanity. We also create comics. My comic does feature one of those things. It features zombies. And it is this comic here, Young and the Dead. This is not the most recent issue. There's another one after that, which I don't have here, but I got 4 issues available right now. I'm working on the 5th as part of this challenge. But anyway, this comic, it features zombies because it is a kids versus zombie adventures. Imagine Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. If you're a fan of old 80s action films that star kids as the heroes, like Goonies, Monster Squad, E.T., Explorers, all those kind of shows, Stand By Me, that kind of thing. But that with zombies, or more modernly, if you're more into like Stranger Things, you're probably gonna be into that. So that's the book I'm working on right now. So if you've been keeping up with these videos, you probably know what this challenge is all about. So bear with me while I kind of explain it to some of the newer people. I will try to be brief. Basically, the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge is a challenge started by Kevin Cross, who was having trouble getting his comic book projects done. So what he did was he said, you know what, everyone's got 30 minutes in a day. So if we just spend 30 minutes every day, we do that for 100 days straight, and then also vlog about it, let people know online, whether it's on whatever social media. I'm doing videos. You could do it on like a Discord with people letting them know. You could do it on Facebook, Instagram, whatever the case is, but every day you have to let people know about your progress to hold you accountable. And then you do that for 100 days straight, and then by those 100 days you build up habits and you're a little more comfortable, and you just put aside that time because everyone has that 30 minutes. So that's the challenge. I'm doing mine a little differently this time because this is my, like I said in the beginning, this is my 4th round. The first 2 rounds I did daily YouTube updates, but I got a lot going on, and because I've kind of proven myself that I can do the challenge, right now I'm transitioned to just doing these weekly updates. But I am still working on the comic book, not only for that 30 minutes a day, but I've kind of changed it for myself personally and set aside an hour a day to work on my project. Hopefully more, but at least an hour, no less. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Now, as I mentioned, I'm doing an hour a day, a little more, so I thought it would be interesting to kind of go back to all the way back, not to the 3rd round. Again, I'm on the 4th round. The 3rd round, I was working on a different project, not this particular book. So if I go back further to the 2nd round, I'm kind of comparing myself to where I was when I was working on that book. So I did some calculations. Right now, technically, I'm like at day 44, I think. So I went back to those old videos and I watched day 44 just to see where I was, because the thing is, because I'm putting in a little more time, I'm putting in an hour a day, I was hoping to be a little further along. The other thing is, I'm not only, in the beginning, again, if you've been watching this, you know that I've done the script. I'm working on issue 5, but I also wrote the script for issue 6 because that is the final issue, and I just wanted to make sure everything made sense before I started illustrating and putting together this current issue, issue 5. So I just wanted to, I didn't want any surprises when I got down to that last issue, like, oh, I should have brought this up, or I didn't plan it out right. So that's the reason why I took a little more time to write 2 scripts. It may seem like a little further behind because when I watched that video for 44 on round 2, I noticed that I had just started I had penciled page 1 and I had just started inking it. So that's where I was then, and I was hoping I would sort of be there when I watched it, but then I kind of forgot that I'm spending a little more time because I wrote that script. So, but I'm close. I'm getting close to there, and I think what's going to happen is I think that I'm going to start surpassing that, and I'm gonna pull ahead, and then I'll be further along than I was eventually in that last challenge. And one of the reasons for that, not only am I spending a little more time, that minimum of an hour a day, but I'm also going to be working on this comic book digitally. Maybe not the whole thing, but the bulk of the penciling will be done digitally. I'll get a little more into that before we close out. But I think working digitally in Clip Studio Paint, I think that's gonna help me kind of pull ahead, and we'll start seeing, we'll get a little further than we did alone before, and I'm super excited to get into that. But that's going to be next week. That's when I start penciling. But for this week, well, what did I accomplish this week? Well, one of the things is that I had my first draft of the script for issue 5 and 6 edited. So right now this is issue 5. You can see, whereas before it said first draft, now it says second draft. So I handed it to my editor, aka my girlfriend, who is a writer, and had her look at it. I was a little nervous because I've had people, like, usually I just give it to people to spell check and stuff before, but since my girlfriend is a writer, I was a little nervous that she might tear it apart or whatever, and I was very happy to know that she absolutely loved it. And, you know, of course, she is my girlfriend, but she's also very honest, and she went through and she did tell me some certain things that I should change that didn't make sense or whatever, and asked some questions and made sure that I clarify certain things. So that's all good news. One of the things that I was also kind of worried about when handing this story off to somebody to edit is there's some twists and turns and things like that are coming up in these next 2 issues, and I was worried that they might be too obvious, that you know, they would, oh, I see that coming a mile away. And surprisingly, my girlfriend, who pays attention to this kind of stuff because she's a writer and she knows a lot about that, you know, just how to plan things out like that. But she didn't see them coming, which is good, because the problem is when you write something, I mean, I know how it's going to unfold. I know those twists and turns are coming. So to me, it's like, it's hard for me to gauge somebody who's not familiar with it, who didn't write it, if they're going to be able to see that stuff. And so far, so good. I may show it to a few other people that I can trust and see if they see that coming or not. I don't know. But that was sort of good news. And in one instance, there was something like, my girlfriend was like, is that it? I mean, this happened, you kind of didn't follow up there. She thought that I had just kind of left something hanging when in fact it did come back. And that's always the good thing, because you know, you should have a little idea. And I try to, when I watch movies, I'm trying to figure things out like that. Sometimes I'm on, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes my idea of what should happen is better than what actually happens in, say, a film or a book or something like that. So, but that's always good, and apparently it was very satisfying, and I'm just super excited because I'm really happy with the way the script is. So anyway, that's one of the things that I did last week. Now, if you watched last week's video, you know that I completed these little tiny thumbnails, very rough, I can't even hardly tell what's going on. I can sort of decipher this just because I'm the one that drew it and everything. But you know, going forward, I need to go a little more in depth as far as the layouts and the thumbnails and things. So this was just my first pass at thumbs. Some people, they'll just do one set of thumbnails. Most people, I would assume, do. But I went a little further, and I kind of fleshed these out. So that's what I was doing. And now I've got these here. And so I just call these pre-thumbnails, and then I can either call these larger thumbnails or whatever, or layouts. I do this just to basically pace the story out, kind of make sure how many, you know, panels and everything I have per page, and also when you look at this all as one thing, you get the sense of the story as a whole. You can see it all at once. You can see how it moves from page to page and everything, and just get a really good overview that way when it's super tiny like this all on one page. But now going a little deeper, I've got 1 or 2 on a page. Now I know this is hard to see. I made the mistake of drawing these in non-photo blue pencil because that's typically what and the thing is, lately I've been doing a lot of my sketching digitally. So when I move back to traditional media, which I still recommend for doing thumbnails, I just think traditional works better for thumbnails. These first round here, they were done in ballpoint pen, just so I don't do any erasing or anything like this. This, I wanted to work out my composition and things a little more, so I did do that in, like I said, a non-photo blue pencil. And the reason why I use that is because usually when you scan these in, after you can ink them and you don't have to worry about erasing it. You can scan these into Photoshop, and then anything that's this blue color is just keyed out. You don't see it. So it saves some time that way. But I should have done these in like a red Kohl erase pencil or something, because these aren't going to be scanned in. There's no inks that are going to go over them. So unfortunately, they're going to be really hard for you to see. But these are sort of for my benefit. And like I said, there are some spoilers and things in here. But anyway, so I don't know if you can get the idea that this is one page. So this is the first page. And actually, I think I did these upside down. Technically, this page should be on this side, but I did all these upside down. But again, this is just for my benefit. So that's the first page when you first open it. And then after that, you've got 2 pages on every layout here. And these are going to be facing pages. So when you open up the book, this is how it's going to look. So I can get an idea of what each thing's going to look like as a spread when you open it up. And then it's just a matter of me going in. I've already I know how many, based on that first round of thumbnails I did, I've got my, I know my panel layouts and everything. And I may define these a little more in this stage here. As I'm also paying attention to how many word balloons. I'm referring back to the script and my word balloons and captions, how many of those are, and that's going to determine how big some of these panels are. And I noticed that some of them that don't have a lot of word balloons, I would scrunch the panels to make those a little smaller. Ones with word balloons, I'd make the panels a little bigger because I don't want everything to get scrunched up, and I just want to make sure I have room for that. So I'll always be thinking of, especially if you're the writer and the artist, if you are only doing the writing and you're passing it off to an artist, make sure that there's not a lot of stuff going on in your scene if there's also a lot of dialogue, and it might just be difficult unless you're giving ample room to do that, like a page spread or larger panels. I typically use a lot of panels, so it gets you got to be really careful, at least the way that I work. But anyway, so I am also in this stage, I'm trying to figure out, my establishing shots and everything, and the characters, all that kind of stuff, and just making sure that I've got a good blueprint when I move on to the next stage, which is penciling. So when you're doing these layouts, when you're composing your shots, you want to be cognizant of sort of how it reads and everything, and the user, I say user experience, the reader, I guess I've done a little UI design and things like that in the past, so I'm constantly thinking that. But how the reader, how it's going to affect the reader, and you want to make sure that you're keeping your audience interested, and that you're not just recycling the same panels. It's just not like a lot of talking heads, or you're not doing all like medium shots or whatever. You want to switch it up. So this is my opportunity to kind of do that. So I start off, I've got an establishing shot, and there's different kinds of shots. So I look back at the other page. So I got this establishing shot of this building, which is Gen Core, which is sort of the research facility that everyone's headed at. And I looked at the last issue, and I kind of had, I think it was sort of a overhead view looking down at it, and then I had sort of a straight on view. So I wanted to do something different, a little different angle. So this one I've got it kind of tilted up, like extreme perspective, kind of tilting up, like as if you're looking up at it, like almost from a worm's eye view type of thing, just to keep that interesting. You don't want to keep using the same shots where there's establishing shots, or your characters, even your panels. And there is some precedent for creating a nice clean, like basic 9-panel grid. That's fine. With the stuff that I do, I try to do, I don't go too crazy with my panels, but there are points where the action speeds up, where I start tilting the cameras. I get some like Dutch angles and things like that. Again, just to switch things up. I like to play with transitions, like if one scene, and there's something in here where one scene ends up with these bright lights, and then it kind of fades to another scene where somebody's shining a flashlight. That's just something that I like to do personally, just to kind of smooth out those transitions. I don't always do that, but I try to do that if I can, if it works, But I really try to keep it interesting. So if I've got a front view of somebody, maybe the next shot is from their back, over their shoulder, or an overhead view, or like I said, sort of worm's eye view, or Dutch angles, or however you want to do that, but just keep it interesting. Also, as I'm laying things out, I'm paying attention to the body language and the gestures. I don't want everyone to always have the same pose. So sometimes I'll sit there and, like, especially if somebody's picking something up, I'll go and pick up an item that's similar shape or whatever and hold it up just to see how that is, or different views or different expressions, body language. What are the characters? Just don't show your characters talking, just doing nothing. If that, throw some hand gestures and things like that, and just think about that when you're drawing. What is this person trying to convey? What is their emotional state? Where are they at? and try to work some body language into that, their posture. Maybe they're like, or that they're, you know, if they're scared, they're back a little bit like that. But try to work that in, and also with expressions. So, you know, I can hold a mirror, or you can turn your phone on and just kind of like you're going to take a selfie and kind of make some expressions in there to kind of get some ideas of different expressions and things like that. But don't just, I see so many comics where, you know, they show a character and it's like the same, kind of the same expression on every panel, the same kind of stiffness in their body. So think about that, and that's why I like doing this kind of stuff, because it really gives you a chance to play with the gestures, because it's not super tight, it's very loose. And I don't know if you can see that stuff, but see how loose that is? But there's a lot of emotion in that. And unfortunately, sometimes when you go to the final pencil stage, you will lose some of that emotion and some of that, you know, that fluidity, because you're tightening things up. That's kind of the way it goes. But if you can, try to keep, and it helps when you start doing these, you know, these gesture drawings, because I see a lot of people that they just go straight to drawing. They're not laying down any gestures or anything, and unfortunately their work starts to look a little stiff. So those are some of the things you want to think about in this stage of creating comics. Whether if you're just doing one round of thumbnails, maybe it's not quite this big, maybe it's halfway between this smaller version here and here, however you want to do it. Or you can do it like me and just do these really quick, real tiny thumbs, and then move on to something a little bigger like this, however you want to work. But you definitely want to take advantage of this stage of making comics, because that's when a lot of that emotion and everything comes in. And if you skip it, your comics are they're gonna look stiff and rigid, and you don't want that. So anyway, that's what I did this week. What am I planning on doing next week? Well, next week is sort of the exciting part, the part that I've been looking forward to get to. As much as I love writing and scripting and doing these layouts and everything, the thing about comics that I really like is just the, you know, the actual drawing part. And I'm sure a lot of you guys and gals out there are anxious for that part too. You know, this is the kind of, I'm always like, before the previous issues, I'm like, bear with me, we're gonna get to that drawing part. I know that's the exciting part, but in order to get to that drawing part, you've got to do all this upfront work first. And hopefully that's interesting too, but I think it's gonna get a lot more interesting moving forward as I start to work on some of the illustrations and, you know, the pencil, the ink, and I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to do it. Like I mentioned before, I am definitely going to do digital. I'm going to digitally pencil the book. I was kind of up in the air of whether I wanted to digitally ink or if I wanted to traditionally ink, because I was worried that because these comic book pages and these other issues were all the coloring and everything, that was all digitally, or the shading, I should say. It's not a color book. Those were done digitally. The lettering was always done digitally, but the penciling and inking was always done traditionally. But I was afraid if I digitally inked, there'd be a noticeable difference from those issues to the new one. And when I eventually, if I collect all this into a trade, I didn't want to be reading along like, whoa, what happened here? So I don't know. I think I might be able to match some of that technique using some specific brushes and things like that digitally. But I think what's going to end up happening, just because right now I'm sort of splitting my time between, you know, the underground layer and then some work mobily. I'm one that doesn't really, I don't like to work on comics on the iPad. If that's how you do it, that's awesome. It's probably a big advantage because you can take it wherever you go. I use the iPad for sketching and things like that. But I like having my big setup. I've got the control center and the underground layer. I've got all my screens. I can pull reference up. I've got my big Cintiq. I'm used to, before when I was doing traditionally, I worked at 11 by 17, so I'm used to that sort of big canvas. So I like to have that. Unfortunately, when I'm away from the underground layer, I don't always have that opportunity. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is I'm gonna plan it out so that I am digitally penciling everything, and I may do some traditional inks. I may, like, maybe some of the perspective and stuff, I may do some of that digitally. I may do the panel borders and everything digitally. And then what I'll do is I will print that out, and I will probably, when I'm out of the underground layer, out and about, then I will probably go ahead and I will probably ink traditionally. So it's going to be a little hybrid. At least that's sort of the plan. We'll see how that goes, because I definitely want to keep putting in my time, but because I'm not going to always have my big computer set up with me, I've got to make some concessions and try to figure out the best way to do that. So that's my plan moving forward, but I guess we're going to see what happens in the next episode as I continue on with this challenge. And are you guys doing the challenge? I want to know your progress, how you're coming along. Have you thought about doing the challenge? What do you think about some of the stuff I talked about? Do you do things a different way? I'm always interested to hear what you guys got going on in the chat, or not the chat, but the comment section. I thought this was a live stream for a second. Not the chat, the comment section. So go in the comment section and leave me a note. I try to get back to everyone. Lately, it might take a day or so to get back, but I will get back to you. So send me those questions, send me those comments, let me know what you're up to, and I'll see you guys later. That is all. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Also, you can follow me at Serkworks on social media, and now you can support the work that I do on Patreon. Do you like making comics? Then go to Serkworks.com and pick up the Comic Maker Starter Kit. It's packed full of fonts, brushes, templates, and more. And best of all, it's totally free.